So not to go too much into the article that was written about you, but there's this great and insane line that I think is worth talking about. And it's this idea of punch up, not down. Could you talk a little bit about what the guy who was harassing you meant by that, and just sort of the ultimate irony of that line?
I can elaborate on what I think he meant by that. So he said punch up, kick. He said punch up, not down, assholes. So I think his perception is that. So I think he subscribes to the idea that men are generally privileged above women, and I think he doesn't see the prison industrial complex as a men's issue. I think he doesn't see addiction and homelessness as a men's issue, and I think he doesn't see mental health is, I think, a big one, and then family court is basically the other big one, and family court is kind of related to prison because children so there's a lot of social science data that seems to indicate that when the father is absent, the children are more likely, especially the young boys, are more likely to become substance abusers. They have less empathy. They are, more likely to end up in prison, basically. And then if they are in prison and they have children themselves later in life, that's yet another absent father. So it kind of, and I think there's also epigenetic factors that go into play. So like, I don't know really how epigenetics work, but the idea is like, if you have some kind of trauma that imprints on your genetic code in some way, or at least your epigenetics, that you can pass on sort of part of that to the behavioral pattern in some way to your kids. I don't know exactly how it works, so maybe check that out on your own. But
I think it's just some sort of chemical reaction.
Maybe.
DNA.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But they're all interrelated, and but anyway, he apparently has this perception that to talk about it is to punch down. So I don't know what that means, except he thinks that prisoners are like higher in society than him or than anyone else. I don't really know. I mean...
Well, I think it comes up from like 3 different weird assumptions. The first is that men lord over everyone else and their lives are just better by being men than anyone of any other gender. And the second one is that if you try to talk about any issue that's specific to men, like the fact that over 90% of prisoners are men, that you're somehow taking away attention from issues that might, for example, affect women. And because you talk about those issues and because you recognize that men as a class are not somehow immune from the human condition, that you have some sort of like hatred or antagonism towards non-men.
Well, I think it also speaks to his worldview that, so I would surmise that he is an activist of some kind. And so a lot of activists perceive themselves as like hitting back against an unjust system that's persecuting them. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's projecting that onto me as well. Mm-hmm. So he thinks that I'm fighting something. Really, I'm not fighting anything. I'm trying to give broken people some compassion that I have for them. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to give them a cathartic outlet, maybe give them some music that they can sort of like brood in the emotions a little bit and maybe think about their problems in a different way, and then maybe put it behind them a little bit, Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it comes from, I think, a viewpoint that's very hierarchical, like that the world is just this huge hierarchy, and that in order to understand it, you have to use their hierarchy, which is, all right, white men at the top, then white women, then people of other races, then maybe like gay people mixed in there somehow, trans people at the very bottom. It's just sort of like, it's this huge ladder that is literally only defined by some external characteristic that people see in you.
Yeah, I guess I don't have that worldview. I don't have like a hierarchical worldview. I sort of have the worldview that there are actors everywhere. I think that everyone obviously is the star of their own show and is living in a story that is totally unique to them and has their own desires. And I think that for the most part, people can get what they want. Like if I can find happiness in my life where I've never earned more than, X amount of money, I, could never afford to finish school, I could afford to start going to school. Taken advantage of in the military, taken advantage of in prison, taken advantage of as a, dead-end job worker. I mean, and then have a psychotic break, all this stuff, and then I come out of it better than my peers and, happier than they are. It's just kind of, it tells me that, I think their mindset is more similar to the mindset I had before prison. And in prison, I kind of discovered that I can do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. And they just haven't discovered that. So they feel disempowered, even though they have, they champion the idea of empowerment, or they think they do. They're fundamentally disempowered.
Well, I think that the way to get power is through blame. Making sure that someone else is responsible for everything.
Yeah, that's fundamentally disempowering. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, as far as the punch up, kick down thing, so I'm not punching anyone, but apparently he is. And so he's punching up all the time. And then I think he's also kicking down because, I'm a recovering mentally ill convict who, is, I'm not so close to homelessness anymore, but for a while I was one paycheck away from homelessness. And I was homeless basically before I went crazy. So I imagine that this guy is the kind of guy who would in doing what he did, he's basically kicking and spitting at homeless people, telling them not to punch up, or not to punch down. I don't know. It's confusing to me, and it's just sad.